Hi everybody, welcome to today's Flashmasters live stream. I am so excited for this live stream because we are joined by one of the very best and most decorated wedding photographers in the world. Today we are going to be joined by Jason Vinson, and in this stream Jason's going to be very kindly sharing how he created these 4 images, which as you'll see are incredible. But that's not all. If you are a Flashmasters member, if you watch this video back in the member zone of the website, you'll see the full length stream in which Jason also talked about how he created these images. Now, just to introduce Jason, because he's also very modest, so I'm going to do this bit now for him. He is incredible. He's the current Masters Wedding Photographer of the Year in America. He is the current ISPWP Wedding Photographer of the Year. He's been named top 10 in the world in Fearless for the past 2 years. He is a magician. I'm personally very excited for today's live stream. So without further ado, let's welcome, all being well with technology, Mr. Jason Vinson. Thank you so much for joining us, Jason.
What's going on, everyone?
How are you doing?
Good. I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. No, thank you so much. Just to also say that Jason is our newest Flashmasters ambassador. So the first thing we want to say is thank you, Jason, for joining the Flashmasters community. We are honored to have you in the team. We adore your work. It's crazy good. Oh, thank you. And we're really looking forward to getting into how you created some of your images. Before we get into that though, Jason, I'm sure everybody watching is going to know you and know your work. But would you like to just give a little bit of a brief introduction to yourself, where you're based, what you do?
Yeah, so primarily a wedding and documentary photographer based out of Northwest Arkansas. Been shooting weddings since about 2010. And yeah, that's kind of the main thing that I do. I also do a fair bit of education. So I speak at conferences, teach some workshops online, do a little bit of YouTube content. I write content for f-stoppers as well. So I dabble in a whole bunch of things.
That's cool. That's amazing. Well, I should actually say that Helen and I were lucky enough to actually meet Jason in person last year. I think it was in November, where, I mean, I felt sorry for you. Helen and I were actually models for Jason at the workshop that he held with our other ambassadors, amazing photographers as well, Jesse and Maura LaPlante. So what a workshop that was, having the 3 of you there together. And we were just blown away by all 3 of you and what you were creating. So I will say, if you are interested, and you will be by the time with stream finishes, in find out more about Jason's education. And I say firsthand, we've seen what Jason can do and how much he gives on workshops and how incredible like that experience is. Then do go and check out. Firstly, do you have any workshops actually booked in at the moment, Jason?
I have one coming up in Waterloo, Ontario, in a few months.
Excellent. Okay. The link to Jason's workshops and Patreon will be in the description. Out of interest, Jason, how do you get into education? Was it something you wanted to do from the off, or was it something that you sort of fell into because people were asking?
I don't know. It was just kind of something that I kind of randomly stumbled into. I initially started off just kind of writing articles for f-stoppers just because at the time I had a day job and I had some free time at the day job, so I could kind of write some content while I was waiting on things at the day job. And so that was kind of how I initially started teaching and educating, through articles and stuff like that. And then through that, it just kind of blossomed into in-person stuff. I first spoke at WPPI in 2019 and been speaking there every year since.
Cool. What would you, as somebody who's never been to WPPI, which is me, how would you describe WPPI? Because everybody we speak to who's been raves about it, and it seems to be that is the place to be.
I mean, it's amazing. Not only just for like the education side of things. So there's obviously tons of classes, free seminars. The expo floor is amazing. Getting to see all of the latest and greatest gear and actually get like hands-on with stuff instead of just looking at pictures and images of things online. You also get to actually use the gear and stuff on the floor. The photo walks are amazing. I teach one of those every year. Do 2 or 3 of those every year. So you get a little bit more hands-on instead of just like watching someone speak on a stage. We kind of go out and we actually wander around, and I treat it like a real session where I don't actually know what I'm going to do. We just go out and I explain like what I'm looking for, and then I walk through how I'm trying to achieve things. And some of the best parts about that is that you actually get to see me fail at an idea, or how I problem solve through an idea that's not initially working, and how we kind of dovetail into something different. And then from there, just the community is amazing too. So there's just a ton of hangouts, parties, just hanging out at the bar and getting to meet new people. And so that's one of my favorite parts as well.
Yeah, that's cool. And when when you did the workshop where, say, Helen and I modeled, that was one of my favorite bits. Even though we were modeling, it was really interesting to see from like as you were walking down the street, the three of you, and you didn't know where you were. So you never had the pleasure of being in glorious Leeds before. And I should say, the weather was
Yeah, just see how
horrible.
chaotic it actually
Yeah,
is.
yeah, it was cold, it was raining, and it was a pleasure to see you walking and just seeing your like like looking all the time out for potential. It was incredible, and yeah, we learned a lot from that. And we love the experience and how at ease you put us. So yeah,
Good, thank you.
one day we will get to WPPI. It's on our list, isn't it? Helen's down here. I know that Helen really, really wants to go this year, but
There's
I
still
still
time.
think
You can make this next one.
yeah, we
Welcome
will
back
get
to
there
Vegas.
one year. Yeah, Vegas, baby, exactly. Should also want to congratulate you as well on your recent award successes.
Oh,
ISPWP
thank you.
Photographer of the Year, Masters. I mean, how did that feel winning those? Was that a shock? Not a shock?
I mean, it feels good. Yeah, it just gives me more imposter syndrome.
Yeah. Out of interest, obviously, of some relevance to Flashmasters, what are your thoughts in general about like maybe the upsides of entering awards? Do you find that like what does it give to you the process of entering different awards?
Yeah, for me, it's always been a big motivator to enter awards because it motivates me. Like, it initially motivated me more to get things correct in camera and to push myself, and um not just like rely on things that I knew I could just do well, and just kind of like I could take these images in my sleep. It pushed me to actually try and create something interesting and unique while also doing it in camera and not relying on, Photoshop and post-production and things like that. Um, and so yeah, it's definitely been a big motivator or big contributing factor into my growth as a photographer for sure.
Love that. No, that's really good. And I think sometimes people underestimate how, it's not a case of you putting images in, if it wins, it wins, if it doesn't, it doesn't. But it actually does make you look at images, I think, in a different way and think, could it be improved? Could I make that better by changing the crop, by editing this out and things like that? And I think that's a great thing about awards. And obviously, you're proving that, and you're, obviously a multi-award winner now, so that's amazing. So yeah, thank you for that little introduction. What we'll do now, Jason, if it's all right, is get into some of your work, and I'm so excited for this. Honestly, like when I update the Flashmasters Instagram and we're sharing your work, it's like, which one do I put first? Because they all will do really well. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to get into this. So I'm going to let you talk through, because what Jason's done very, very kindly is, although we're going to talk through 4 images, we don't have 4 images to look through. We've got more than that. So Jason, I think he's going to talk a little bit about thought process and his mindset throughout taking these. So when I show you the first one, you might not immediately recognize it as being a Jason shot. But yeah, if you want to introduce this one for us, please, Jason.
Yeah, so this is basically just to give everyone like a glimpse at what the natural light scene looked like. And so this couple got married at the top of this mountain that overlooks a lake. It has wonderful, amazing views. But like the fog rolled in, and it was just this heavy, thick fog for the entire day. And so initially you have that little bit of like, oh man, this kind of sucks because we you don't get really any sunset images. You're not going to be able to see the lake. So they got married on this mountain so that they could have these wonderful views, and the fog just completely cut all of it out. Um, but the instant I see fog, or just really anything that's in the air that has any sort of like translucent properties, so fog,
Yeah.
rain, champagne, bubbles, all that kind of stuff, smoke. the instant thing that comes to mind is backlighting it because it's going to catch the light and help reflect things and stuff like that. And so, although there was a little bit of disappointment as far as the views and the grandesque of this like scene, I was super excited to be able to actually go out and shoot some portraits in the fog. And so some of the next images is kind of what we got from this scene.
Yeah, I get that. And as you'll see, I mean, this is a beautiful image anyway. I think that's the thing to all remember. I mean, most of us, I am sure, will be delighted with this as a photograph. But as you'll see, what Jason does next is just absolutely incredible. But the key thing there, and I really like what you said there, Jason, is that you're excited because you know the potential because there's mist in the air, and that obviously like clicks in your brain and thinks, I know what I can do with this. So let's move on to the next one then, which I say is amazing. I mean, wow. I'm
So
gonna
this
move you
is
over here, Jason.
this is kind of like the main image that I had in mind. So like whenever I started setting up lights, and I had an idea in my head, this is what it was. And so what this is one 8200 with a Magmod full CTO gel behind the couple, maybe a few feet back. And then I took an AD 600 Pro with no gel on it, and I literally just like sprinted into the woods. And I went far, far, far back into the woods. And that 600 is at full power because it's so far away from where we're at and it's cutting through so much fog. But the idea here was to get get these complementary colors, so the warm tones and the cool tones. And then the second light's primary purpose was to kind of pull out the depth of like these trees in the forest and stuff like that, just to kind of give some drama to it. But one thing that I always try to do when I'm setting up lights, especially when I'm setting up two lights, if I'm going to take the time to set up two lights, I want to use them to their full potential. And so I'll take images with just one light, like just the orange light, just the blue light. I'll move around the lights to try and get like the most out of this one single setup so that I'm not spending a bunch of time setting up multiple lights just for one image. I'm trying to really stretch and pull this setup time into multiple images. And so while this is the main image that we got, or the main image that I was setting up for. This next image is, I believe, with just the full CTO gel and the 600 is turned off. So this is just with the 8200, exact same setup, just a little bit different angle. And then I believe I maybe moved the light a little bit closer to try and get that beam of light to kind of cut through the fog a little bit, so you can see a little bit more of that streaking. And then with the 8600 Pro, that's way out in the woods. What I did is I just turned off this 200 Pro and I just moved my position, the couple staying in the exact same spot, and then I just have them rotate. And then I use the 600 Pro to backlight them, and that's this next image here.
Yo, these are absolutely incredible.
And so this is the
And
600
you're
Pro
making it sound so easy as
coming
well,
through
which yeah, yeah, and that's what's good. I
I mean,
think it's
when you get conditions like this, it is kind of easy, but
well, it's easy. It's easy when you know what you're doing. I think that's the key thing. Because these are incredible. I mean, I don't know if you can see the comments, Jason, but yeah, freaking fire!
I've seen
Wow,
a
wow,
couple of them pop up,
stunning,
yeah.
nice shot, so romantic, stunning. I can't. Oh, Scott said he can't see a difference. Absolutely incredible, so good, love it. Wow, wow, beautiful. I mean. You don't need me to reiterate it. These are beautiful. There's so much to sort of delve into with this. So you mentioned, Jason, for a start, you're using large strobes, which I think is quite unusual. So how do you? Could you just break down very quickly, please, what equipment you like to use, just so we can get a bit of an
Yeah, so
idea?
this was taken a few years ago. At the time, the 8200 was kind of like my main light. And more from kind of like this time of my career to my current time is I use a lot of like really powerful lights, just because I am constantly trying to kill ambient light and things like that. And with the invent of the global shutter and stuff like that, that's probably going to change here pretty
Yeah,
soon. But as far as currently right now to the past like year or so, kind of like my main favorite light of all time is the Elechrome ELB 500 TTL, which is a 500 watt second light. I also have the Godox 1200 Pro, which is 1200 watt seconds, and I'll bring that to sessions and shoots as well. It's just a little bit heavier. But those two lights, the reason why I like them so much is because they're what's called a pack and headlight, and so all of the internals of the flash, like the battery and all of kind of like the components, are held within a pack that's put down at the base of the stand. And then you have just like a little kind of ball that has the flash tube and a little bit of components that's on the stand. And so I can use a big, powerful light with a very small and compact light stand. So
Yeah, and
it
I'm
so one of the
I
biggest
must.
drawbacks, especially for like this session here. Sorry, go ahead.
No, no, no. Carry on, Jason. I don't want to interrupt you. Go for it.
With the in this situation here with the 600 Pro, like in order to use the 600 Pro, yet that light is bigger and heavier, but because it's so big and heavy up on top of a light stand, you need a bigger and more robust light stand in order to put it way up in the air. Whereas something like the 1200 Pro or the Elechrome 500, all the weight's down at the base of the stand, and so it actually gives you a more stable setup, even though you're using a heavier light with a lot more power.
Yeah, and I remember when I say going back to when you shot Helen and I wasn't aware of the lights that you used at the time, and I would have thought before seeing you work, ooh, no, I wouldn't fancy that. It's going to be too cumbersome. It's going to take too long to set up. But you changed my opinion on that by how quickly you were able to work. So I think it's important to reiterate that when you hear Jason saying this, and you think, oh, it's not for me. That's going to take forever. It really doesn't. As you know, Jason just described.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
seen Jason working, and it really made me think, oh, because what I think is really key to. Oh, I will just jump in and say we've hit the biggest number of 50 viewers live. We've never had 50 before, so there you go,
Oh, that's awesome.
Jason. Yeah, so thank you everyone for tuning in. We've never had this many people watching at one time, which speaks for itself, I think. But I think if we go back to image one, it's really important to look
Uh,
at the ambient light because it would be very easy to think can't really use off-camera flash there because the ambient's too bright. But yet
this is
Jason is
like 2 o'clock
demonstrating.
in the afternoon. It's still very bright.
Yeah, so I mean, this is an amazing advert for powerful strobes. It really makes you think because I must admit, for me personally, I don't tend to use off-camera flash in these conditions because I don't have the power. So I can't really do this unless I'm going to use lots of, AD200s together. But the fact that you can is such an advantage and shows you what you can do as well by moving it around. The other question that I had, Jason, if anybody does have any questions, please put them in the chat. I'll make sure if I can, and
Definitely.
Helen's watching, that we can make sure we see them all. You mentioned it's far, and just know that people want to know this. How far behind the couple is the light?
So the 200 that has the full CTO gel is probably 4 to 5 feet behind them.
Okay, not as far as I thought then. Cool.
No,
That's good.
it's not super far, and so that helps a lot too because the light's not having to cut through as much fog, whereas the 600 is a lot further back and it's at full power. Whereas I don't even think this 200 Pro is. It might have been at full power, half power, something like that.
Yeah, that's great. I
So that gives
absolutely
you an
love
idea.
it.
Like but yeah, the CTO gel light is a lot less powerful of a flash, but it's still putting out a good amount of power.
Yeah, yeah, excellent. Yeah, some love in the chat here for the more powerful strobes. Drew says, Jason is such a great ambassador for using high power strobes. He even used a 1200 watt. There you go. Yeah, just making sure we've got the questions. We not missed any questions, have I? Oh, somebody's asked. Sorry, apologies. I'm not sure who this person is. No high speed sync to get the full power.
I'll use high speed sync every once in a while. It really depends on the nature of the image. Like if I'm shooting super wide and I'm not really worried about depth of field, then I'll just go to a higher aperture and not go into high speed sync just because I do tend to always use gels on my flash. So the instant I put a full CTO gel, it cuts a stop of power. And then the instant you go into high speed sync, it cuts a stop of power. And the higher up
Yeah,
you go, you start losing even more power, which is another reason why I also like having more powerful lights, especially because, almost all the time I'm using some type of gel, and that instantly cuts a stop of power from my lights. But if I am using like off-camera flash to maybe create like a sunset look, and I'm shooting at 85-1.4 to get like a really shallow depth of field, then I'll totally go into high-speed sync if I need to, depending if I can get enough power out of the light in the situation.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much. That makes a lot of sense. Here's an interesting question from Chris. Why is Jason so great? There you go. I don't know if you want to answer that one. We've got a
I'm
question
just
from
tricking you all.
Smoke and mirrors, almost literally. Here's a question from Biz. Quite impressed with that one. Here's a question from Biz. On this image, what was your white balance, Jason?
I don't know. I just
Yeah,
shoot auto white
it's a good
balance and
answer.
then I fine tune in post. It was probably pretty close to like daylight white balance so that I could get or a little bit more um towards the warmer side, no, the cooler side, because that 600 Pro doesn't have a gel on it. It's just natural light. So cooling that down, but then the full CTO gel still had enough to give some warmth. And then I probably
That's
pushed and pulled the colors a little bit post.
brilliant. Again, that's really good for people. People always think that if you were to show you're shooting at a very low white balance, which is naturally going to make the scene very cool, very blue. So the blue is not coming from a gel. It's just that you're warming up and then in post exaggerating. Very cool. Because it'd be easy to look at that and think, I must admit I did. I thought you were using a blue gel and a CTO gel. So that's really cool. The other question I have before we move on, I've got all the questions, I'm afraid, Jason. This one, it looks as though it's front lit. So how have you managed to do that? So it looks as though obviously we can see detail in the bride's dress there.
There's just plenty of dynamic range that I can pull out the detail because you got to
Yeah,
think that the I'm backlighting them, but there's also fog in front of them that's catching that light and it's reflecting the light back onto them. And then there's a ton of light out there anyways. And so I'm shooting at, ISO 100. So I have plenty of dynamic range to pull those details out in the situation because I'm underexposing the ambient, but I'm not crushing it.
yeah, brilliant. And that, again, that's always good just to reiterate that with modern day cameras and the dynamic range of those cameras, you can pull out detail when it looks like there isn't any there. And as you demonstrated there. And I actually think that's nicer than if you did have a front light on them, because I think it's a little bit more subtle. Whereas if you do have a front light, it can just be a bit overpowering sometimes.
It looks a look, it gives it more of a flashy look, whereas this obviously
Totally.
is lit with flash, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, these are so romantic, as Ellie said before. And last question just for these, because this is a more general question. But somebody's asked, and again, apologies. Helen, do we know who's asked?
It's John Zagaria.
Oh, John, thank you very much, John, for the question. I was going to say, do you use an assistant, Jason?
I don't use any assistants, no.
There you go.
I've,
We've
I,
not
the
got
only
any
time I've
excuse.
ever used the only time I've ever used an assistant is while I'm teaching, just because just to help carry bags and stuff while I'm talking to people
Yeah,
and to
and then
get like behind the
that's
scenes footage and stuff like that. But like on wedding days, I never use an assistant. If I'm shooting a wedding and I have like a second photographer, they're not helping me set up. They're there to shoot.
interesting. Okay, I mean, again, that's very inspirational. Because it's be easy to look at these and think, oh, it must take a long time to set up. You must need help to do that. And obviously, the way you talk about this is it's actually very simple when you know what you're doing, which is good because it makes it
No,
feel like it's achievable.
yeah, max. I mean, this maybe took me 3-4 minutes to set up, and the only reason why it took that long is because I had to run off into the woods and set up that 600 Pro into the trees.
Wow, that's amazing.
But
That's
that's it. As I
amazing.
was literally running, like when I set stuff up. If you
Yeah,
ever watch me work, I run fast, or maybe not
yeah.
fast, but I try and move. I try and move fast.
Yeah. Do you actually find it hard to work slow? Somebody said you've got all the time in the world. Would you be able to turn that off, do you think? I know I struggle with that. It's always got to be like
You
fast
know,
paced.
yeah. For me, well, because once I have the idea, I wanna act fast. So I'd rather still work fast, and then if I have all the time in the world, then I'll use that for my next idea to kind of walk around and get my bearings and see what I want to do next. But once the idea's there, then I just want to act on it.
Yeah, totally. I get that. Yeah. Really
Yeah, and if I
interesting.
have more
Oh,
time, then I'll just work the scene more.
yeah. Sorry, last question. Focal length. People are just obsessing over these, and I don't blame them.
Um, I don't recall on this. At the time, let's see if this was a few years ago. At this time, I only shot 35-85, so these would have all been at 35.
Oh, it sounds like you don't do that anymore then. You've gone away from the
I
35-85.
have now I have a 24, which is one of my favorite lenses. And then I also have the new um, G Master 70 to 200. But that's mostly for like portraits and stuff like that. But
Cool.
in
Very
for a scene
interesting.
like this, I would have probably shot at 24 had I had the 24, but it was shot at 35.
Yeah, excellent. So Andy said it's, yeah, I think it is Andy. It's your assistant's fault you're not getting amazing photos like this. What's that? Oh, I don't hear it.
How do I stop it?
Oh, I
What's
don't use
what's
assistants, so
happening?
it can't be your assistant's fault.
Just don't press anything. Don't press the buttons. Did I start like a robot or something?
Sorry.
Dang it,
I
Helen,
wanted
quit
to
pushing
do an
buttons.
applause.
No, I need to. If you want to do an applause, that's fine. But we need to change. This is applause. I can't hear it. I'm assuming there's an applause now. Oh, now we're getting the comments in. Well done, Helen. Try to be all professional. This is our biggest ever audience. Okay, well let me just get on to the next. Thank you so much, Jason. I'm learning a lot on this. You're really converting me as well to strobes, which is something I didn't think I would say. So let's look at this next. I mean, this one, Jason, I would have loved to have taken this. I'm so jealous. It is insane. And when we talk about rain shots, you can't get better than this. I absolutely adore it. I love it. So, and I also look at it's also unusual because obviously if we look at the raindrops, it's like, what's Jason done there? Because that's not what a normal rain shot looks like with a backlight. So yeah,
there's definitely some trickery going on.
I will say as well, just this is more for the audience, and again, it's testament to Jason what I'm about to say here. I did message Jason, little peek behind the scenes, to ask him if there was anything that he didn't want to share, because I thought I don't want Jason to feel like he's coming on, he's sharing everything, and his reply was, "I've got nothing to hide. I'm an open book." And I just thought that was so refreshing because I genuinely didn't want you to to feel like you're sharing everything, but that just says a lot about you, Jason. So, and this was one of the ones I was almost referring to.
I
know.
I learned from other people.
It's just so refreshing. I just so much love that attitude, and that's the whole ethos of what we're trying to do here as well. So yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. Well, let's get back to the image. I just wanted to let people know that. Oh, wrong one. One for later. Wrong one. This one.
There you go.
Take it away, Jason.
So yeah, this is I'd mentioned that there's a little bit of trickery here because it's a backlit rain shot, which is kind of standard. We just talked about this with the fog image. Like anytime there's anything in the air, I instantly think backlight. The difference here is that I have two backlights. So one is an 8200 Pro. And then the second one is a Stella Pro Reflex S. And so the Stella Pro Reflex S can do constant light and burst. But in this situation, I have it set to constant light. And then we're shooting at nighttime, so I'm shooting at 1/8 of a second, just handheld. I think it's either 1/8 or 1/4 of a second. And so what I'm doing is as I click the shutter, the longer shutter speed captures the drag of the rain because it's a constant light, and then the pop of flash freezes the rain and freezes them.
That's so clever.
So that's
And
that's how you're getting the effect is that it's being lit by two different lights behind them.
one is constant, one is flash.
And so the constant light lets the rain drag through at the the quarter second, 1/8 of a second, and then the pop of flash freezes the raindrops and things like that.
I mean,
And then
personally,
they're in a dip.
So I was going to say, personally, I
They're in a
think
dip,
that
but I
one
just
piece of
want them
information is
to,
incredible.
Oh, sorry.
No, sorry,
Talking over
there's a
you.
delay. No, you go for it, Jason.
No. I was just saying. So obviously they're in a dip, but I just have to tell them like, hey, once you're in the dip, try and hold it still. Or I just shoot a ton of images honestly, and just grab at a moment where they're kind of like in a frozen position. So had they been moving, because I'm at 1/8 of a second with a constant light, you would have been able to see that movement. You just have to
Yes.
time that right as far as when you take the photo, because There's enough constant light there that they would have gotten dragged, like some shutter drag. And if you were to like zoom in on like her fingertips or hands and stuff like that, there's a little bit of motion blur in there.
Again, I'm not just saying this to be kind though. Even if there is, it doesn't really detract at all. If anything, I think it sort of adds to the whole mystique of it. Because it's
Mhm.
it's not
For sure.
meant to look realistic. This is it. It looks like something from a film cover, and I think that having that little bit of
Mhm.
movement, especially in the arm and the fingers, I think is no bad thing at all. And that pose is just incredible. Yeah, and the fact that there's
Yep.
no umbrella. I mean, again, we talk about this a lot to, to members about how knowing the technique is one thing, but then it's always important to remember to add in that top layer, that pizzazz, whatever you want to call it, just to take it to the next level, which you've done here. Because this would look insane, don't get me wrong, if it was just a couple in a penguin pose. But the fact that you've got this pose, I think, just takes it up and up and up. Yeah, it's so good.
The pose definitely helps for sure. And then location-wise, this is literally just in the middle of the street in a neighborhood. There's houses and everything all around them.
Wow. Yeah, but it looks like yeah, it could be anywhere you want, could like they're on a movie set or
Yep.
something.
Yep.
Um,
It was just finding the right angle so I could get low and get rid of all like the street lights and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. No, it's incredible, and I love the technique. And funny enough, like I've never in all my years of shooting, and I sometimes like will really push myself to think, what can I do that's different? I've never thought of this before. I would love to try it because I think as a technique, it's incredible.
It's
Yeah,
super fun mixing constant light with off-camera flash.
yeah, totally. And you're a master at that, as we will find out as well a bit later in the stream. Andy said here, add so much more depth and unique to what is becoming a standard image. Exactly, Andy. We do get a little bit of blasé these days about seeing shots are actually amazing, but we see lots of rain shots. But the moment you do something a bit different like this, it really elevates it and really helps it stand out. I totally agree. And yeah, Biz has said, cool technique, got to play with that. I'm with you, Biz, 100%. Yeah, I mean, I can't even, there's so many comments that are coming through, I can't even share them all. But yeah. Oh, good question here from Martin. Thank you, Martin. I should have asked this myself. I know that other people asked it. Do you use rear curtain sync, Jason?
No, in this situation, I probably should have just because the nature of the rain. If you zoom in, you can see that it's frozen at the top and then the rain streaks through. But for me, with rear curtain sync, front curtain sync versus rear curtain sync, I'd rather the flash go off when I press the shutter and not have to time their pose to the end of an exposure. And so almost always I'm using front curtain sync.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes total
I actually
sense.
can't remember the last time I changed it to rear curtain sync. Yeah.
Yeah, oftentimes I forget what I'm even on anyway. But it makes total sense. Yeah. I forgot to say. Sorry. I'm assuming we're looking at here just the constant light from behind.
Yeah, so one thing that I wanted to kind of point out to everybody is one thing that I'll always do is when I'm setting up multiple lights. We kind of talked about this with the first one where I'll go through a scene and try and use my lights at different angles, and I'll use one light and two lights and stuff like that. But one thing I'll also do when I have a situation like this is I'll purposely shoot too fast for my flash to be able to keep up. Um, so that I can get an image with just the constant light or just the ambient light as well as with the flash. And so what this is just an image with the constant light. It's the exact same pose, the exact like this image and the first image are probably just like one shutter click away. They're the exact same. Um, just without just one, the flash went off and the other didn't. The only difference is in this situation, I pushed and pulled my dynamic range a little bit more so I could pull out a little bit more of that rain.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So you're not as such taking this knowing you're going to get this. You're just really trying to shoot so fast that your speed light can't, or your strobe rather can't keep up. So it's almost like you don't know.
If I'm there, I'm just shooting to make I'm shooting purposely to get an exposure with the flash and without the flash.
Yeah,
So I'm purposely shooting too fast to make sure that my flash won't be able to keep up with the recycle rate. So that I can do that without having to like put my camera down, go to my trigger, turn off the flash, have them get back in the pose and try and work it that way. I'd rather just click the shutter a little bit too fast that the flash doesn't recycle in time and I get my constant light, or I get
Yeah.
like another image with a different flash and stuff like that. Yep.
This is
And we'll talk.
amazing.
There's another setup where I do that same technique, but with flashes instead of constant light. So I'll walk through what that looks like.
Cool. I can't tell you how inspiring this is. Like, you get my mind whirring looking at these images. Matthew here said
Good, good. I love it.
this is even better. I mean, it's like take your pick. I mean, it's like saying, I don't know. Do you prefer two amazing things? You prefer chocolate or do you prefer crisps? Both are very, very good. Yeah, incredible. Thank you, Jason. Okay, let's move on to this one. Again, just amazing. And I wouldn't have thought this possible because in my head it's like this can't work because you've got long exposure but the couple are still, I don't know.
Yeah, so this one is actually really hard to get. I probably spent maybe 15 minutes just walking around the venue, trying to find a location where I could get them into the skyline where the stars, because I had gotten this idea from a previous champagne shot that I had taken where it was just them spraying champagne and I was pulled back really wide and I had noticed that the champagne kind of looked like stars in the sky. And so, you know, wedding later, I got the opportunity where this couple wanted to do a champagne image, and we're in a situation where we could actually see the stars. And so I instantly went back to that image. I was like, oh, it'd be really cool to have you spraying champagne and have it look like you're spraying stars, right? Like the champagne blends into the
Yeah.
stars, and like you're filling the sky with like champagne stars. So I wandered around trying to find this location. And I found it. I had my wife stand in for a test shot, and I was like, okay, I had it dialed in. In order to get the stars, I was at like, I can't remember. It was like 1 second, a 1 second shutter speed. And then I had my shutter speed down to like 1 second. And then my aperture was like 2.8 or whatever. And then ISO was at 100 or something like that, or 200, somewhere in that range. And I was like, okay, I think we got it down. Go get the couple. And it was like a 5 minute walk to go get them. And I started thinking through and I was like, wait a minute, 1 second is going to be way too much movement for them, right? And so I instantly
Yeah.
went back and I was like, okay, I got to dial down my shutter speed. And so I went to like, I was like, I feel like I could get away with like 1/8 to 1/10 of a second. Like there'll be a little bit of motion blur, but with the flash freezing them, I feel like in between some of that movement, I'll be able to freeze them. So I was at 1/10 of a second. So I had to go up in my ISO in order to compensate so I can get the stars exposed correctly. The problem was is that my flash was like maybe 20 to 30 feet away from where the couple was going to be, and it was already at the lowest power possible. And I just ramped up my ISO by like 3 or 4 stops, and so I had way too much light, even at the lowest power, to light them. And there was no way for me to pull the light even further back to touch. I just knocked over one of my lights. To pull the light even farther back in order to get the correct flash exposure. And so this is a situation where you would put like an ND filter on your flash, right, to try and cut the
Yes.
power. But I didn't have an ND filter because who carries around ND filters for their flashes? Because that's like a super rare occasion that you ever need that.
Yeah.
So what I ended up doing is I got just knowing the color theory behind gels is I got a full CTO gel and I stacked it with a full CTB gel. So color temperature orange, color temperature blue. You stack those together, it becomes neutral in color. And so I use that to cut the power of my flash in order to get a correct exposure. And I finally, right as I like problem solved that, got it set up, the couple walked up. They had one bottle of champagne, so it was like a one and done. You either
Oh,
get it or you don't get it.
wow.
And then this is the image we got. I think there was maybe I think of the entire champagne spray, I think I maybe got 10 images. And there was only two that were sharp, and of the two that were sharp, one of them, the groom had like his eyes closed, or it was like a bad expression. So it was like this is the only image of all of them that actually worked.
I don't know what to say. I mean, thank you for sharing that. I hope everyone's making notes because the fact that you can take this image is one thing, but the fact that you can take it under that pressure and problem solving all the time, And this is a real wedding day. We've had people, not from the community, I must say. I remember when we had Esteban on, and he was showing some of his images, and we had a comment on YouTube saying, you can't do that on a real wedding day. And they all were. I think people would think, you can't do this on a wedding day. No way. But you're just proof that you can. You just need to know your equipment, know what you're doing, and you need to be able to think on your feet and problem solve. It's absolutely incredible.
Problem solving is my favorite part of wedding photography.
Yeah, having met you and sort of feel like I know you a little bit, it's no surprise to me that you're such a fan of chess either. I think like obviously it's like you're seeing this as like a challenge and an issue, and it's like, what pieces can I move around to make this work? Yeah, unbelievable. Yeah, great question, TJ here. Stacking a full CTO. Let me move this so we can see the full comment. Yeah, stacking a full CTO and CTO-B just to cut down on power. Yeah, it's amazing. And I've had that same thing as well, Jason, where I've not had an ND gel. And I have them, but I don't know where they are on the day because I use them so infrequently that it's like, where is it?
So, like, this is the only time I've ever needed it. So, like, even after needing it, I still don't bring them because it's like, it's so rare that I would need one in my bag that it's not worth packing.
Yeah, exactly. Moira, I always want to respond, not with that attitude. Oh, good. Steve, chess more like fighter pilot, exactly. Yeah, and Matthew, the mental speed is mind blowing. You still need to check that you turn the camera on. You don't worry, Matt. You're not on your own. You're not on your own. I'm in your camp. I'm looking at this thinking, wow, like I'm going to watch this back myself. Matthew said, amazing. Is the orange light? Is light pollution on the horizon?
That's light pollution from the city that's on the other side of the hill.
Yeah. I think that really adds to it.
Yep.
Questions for you. I like to ask these questions, photographer. It's not even a technical one. When you take a shot like this, particularly, Jason, and hopefully you're thinking, I can imagine, and talking to you, it seems like, you'll be excited by this yourself. Do you show your image on the back of the camera to your couple? Because they're out in the pitch black, let's not forget. We see the image, but let's picture the scene. It's pitch black. Jason's running around and they're just seeing lights go off. Are you then tempted to show them? Or do you think, I can't in case I've not quite got it?
It depends. Like if I know I've gotten it, it also depends on where we are in the shoot. So especially if I get something that's real cool and it took a little bit of time to set up, and like I can feel that they're kind of like, what are you doing? Like you're taking a lot of time to do this or whatever. I'll show them, and then they'll just be like, oh, that's amazing, and then they'll do whatever I want for the rest of the session, right? But for like an image like this or something, I save it for like the finale image of the slideshow when we do the big reveal. And so for like situations like that, I don't actually do sneak peeks or anything like that because I want the slideshow to leave them breathless. Whereas, like, have you ever seen a movie trailer that was just absolutely phenomenal, and then you went and saw the movie and you're like, oh, I saw all the best parts in the trailer, right?
Yes.
So I never want my wedding day slideshow reveal for them to be like, oh, well, I saw all the best parts in the sneak peeks, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why I don't do sneak peeks or anything like that. We just do a big reveal. I do like a slideshow and we go through the album design together and all that fun stuff. And so in general, I don't, every once in a while I'll show on the back of the camera if I just need to get them excited or show that like why we went through the trouble of setting up a light or things like that.
Yeah, no, I agree. Good answer. It makes total sense. I will say as well, I keep on going back to when you shot us, but another thing that I think was one of our biggest takeaways, actually, which was nothing even to do with the image making at all, was, and I'm sure that I know your couples will feel the same as we did, is that we fed off your enthusiasm for the shot as well. Because, again, for those that maybe haven't heard, we spoke about this on the podcast afterwards, but Helen and I we thought that we were finished in terms of Jason taking shots of us on the day, but we knew that he wanted a shot of us in the rain, which he hadn't had a chance to do yet. And I think you kept on nipping out to check what the weather was like. And when the rain started, and you was like, it's raining, we've got to go now. We were like, oh yeah, that's amazing, because we were feeding off your energy. And I think that's a really good takeaway, because if you would have said, it it's raining now, but we've got some show. It's up to you. We can go out if you want. We wouldn't obviously teach Jason Vinson, but we if that was a couple, they
Yeah.
might be tempted to say, do you know what? Nah, we're fine. But when you go, oh my, if we go out now, we will get epicness, which is more or less what you were doing, and we were like, oh, let's go, let's go, let's go. I think that's a good thing to remember as well. If you are, like you're saying, like you might show the images to a couple, you might not, but the enthusiasm and the way that you portray your excitement, I think is huge. Yeah, Anna says, when can she rent your brain out? I will.
I give it all away during my workshop, so you can join me
Yeah,
there.
there you go. And if the workshops are too far, remember Jason has an incredible Patreon as well. So if you want to learn more from Jason, and of course you're going to, then yeah, if you can't make his workshops, join his Patreon. As I said, we've said it a couple of times, but Jason is so giving with his advice and sharing all this information. Okay, let's move on to the next one. This, I believe, is going to be the last shot that we talk about on YouTube. So remember, for everybody watching, if you want to see more of Jason, we've got some incredible images to share. Then, if you want to join up with Flashmasters, you'll get access to the full length stream. But this is really interesting. I'll just pass over to you, Jason. I'll keep on adding on in the images.
Yeah. This next set of images is to kind of talk through my thought process when I am setting up for an image, as well as what the thought process is once I get the initial idea done. Okay. So this is a very famous glass chapel. I shoot here all the time. And one of the things that I always try and do when I shoot at this chapel is to get something unique and different that I haven't done before. But for this situation, this image right here is just with natural light. And so what I wanted is I wanted the like the lights inside of this glass chapel to kind of make the chapel glow. But there just wasn't enough light. We were like literally getting kicked out of the area because it was time for us to leave. The church lady was telling us to leave and stuff like that. And so we just had like a few minutes to kind of get this image before we left. And so I didn't have enough time for it to get darker so that the chapel could glow brighter. And so this is kind of like the base exposure of just natural light. Now, when we go to the next image, this image, this is with an 8200 Pro with a full CTO gel on it. And I believe a mag sphere, and it's in between the couple and the chapel, and it's pointed directly at the door of the chapel. Okay, and now the next image is going to be just a light that's inside the chapel. This is the 1200 Pro at full power with a full CTO gel in the back of the chapel, just pointed up at the ceiling just to kind of light up and give like a big bounce light throughout the entire interior of the chapel. And so this is just with the 1200 Pro. And now the next image is going to be with both of these lights turned on. So this is the image that I had in mind. This is like the so-called final image. Now, again, once you get the final image, this is when I start working, and this is kind of where the creative images come from. And so again, I kind of talked about this a little bit before, where if I'm going to set up two lights, I will make sure that I click the shutter fast enough to where one light can't recycle in time. And so I can get an image with one flash and the other flash without having to like go in and dial in my settings and turn lights on and off and all that fun stuff. Also, in low light situations such as this, I'm trying to maximize my dynamic range. And so what I'll do is I'll even though we're in a really low light situation, I will shoot at ISO 100 and then I'll just shoot at a very low shutter speed. So in this situation, we're in like the 1/4 of a second, 1/8 of a second shutter speed range. Because on my Sony A9, it has in-body image stabilization that's good enough that I feel comfortable hand holding at 1/4 of a second, especially if I'm using off-camera flash. And so now that I got this like final result, now what I'll do is I'll start to play and I'll start to intentionally move my camera so I can drag the shutter so I can get like streaks of light from the ambient light. So if we go to the next image.
Yeah. Whoa.
That's what this image is. So this is the two flashes going off. So the two flashes freeze the internals of the chapel as well as the couple against the door, and then all of the light from the sky streaks through the frame. And then I take another image. Again, I'm shooting fast enough to where now my 1200 watt second light can't recycle fast enough to keep up with the 200. And so the next image is going to be just the couple being lit without the chapel. Oh, there should be
Oh, so
another one. Maybe,
is it
oh,
this?
maybe not. I maybe not include that. So go back again. Anyway, so after I got that last shot, I got closer because with the shutter drag, I felt like the couple just was a little bit too small in the frame. So again, this is the exact same technique where I'm dragging the camera up and down, getting movement to drag the ambient light. The flash inside the chapel freezes the chapel. The flash against the door freezes the couple. And then again, I shoot fast enough to where the 1200 can't keep up, and that's the next image where it's just the couple being lit against the door and the sky streaking through. And so for me, this is like this is where it ended. This ended up being like I love all those other images. This ended up being my favorite of the set that kind of fulfilled my desire to get something unique at this chapel that I hadn't done before.
Yeah, I mean that last like 2 or 3 minutes going through those images, I think if we could all inject that into our veins, that then we should do, because what an incredible way of showing how you can get such a stunning variety of images without really moving very much. Like you're just using different techniques to create images that look very different and give very different feels. And what I love about it is you're almost giving yourself the ability to test things out and to try new things by getting the safe, well, not say safe, it's still like, it's insane, but like getting that shot that maybe you feel is a little bit more, I don't know what word to, safe. But then that gives you the ability to try this, because I dare say you wouldn't go into this only trying to get that one and going for that as from
I didn't even have this in my. That wasn't even anywhere in my thought process. It was get my safe shot and then just kind of play and see what happens.
I love that. I love that. And again, that is such a great lesson because it also lessens the pressure, doesn't it? You think, I've got, whatever happens now, I've got an image that I can deliver to my clients that I know they will love, but I might as well just try something different. And you never know what comes out of it. And what obviously has is a shot that most of us will look at and think, how has Jason done that? And thank you so much for sharing.
That's always how I shoot. I don't always go for the safe shot first and then get creative. I'll absolutely go into a setup knowing that I'm being unsafe and just trying to get something creative. It just kind of depends on the time and what I'm going after. But a lot of those situations, I'll tell the couple, be like, I'm going to try something. It might not work. We'll see what happens. And so at this point, they trust that I'm going to do something unique. Or there's been times where I'll be like, that's not really working, so let's go somewhere else. And I kind of know when to cut bait and move on.
Morris says something in chat here, which I assume is your quote, Jason. And then I shot there again. So this is obviously a chapel that you're familiar with, shall we say?
Yeah. If you attend my workshop or have seen me do like any sort of like keynote presentation or something like that, I talk about this chapel because I shoot there a lot. And so and then I shot there again part is from that.
That's really cool. Or that's almost like it's a personal challenge of yours to try and reinvent the wheel almost.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and again, that's a good little exercise I think for us all to do. To not just go for safe stuff that we know works, to try and push yourself into trying something you haven't tried before at the venue that maybe you're very, very familiar with.
If you shoot at a venue all the time, yep.
Yeah, that's amazing. Just to add before we close off the stream, if you're watching this in the Flashmasters member zone, remember what we said before the recording started about the little thing that we've got going on. Remember to keep on doing that. I've not been able to check, but I'm hoping that lots of you have done that. But this is where we're going to unfortunately I think Jason's camera's just frozen, but this is where we're going to say thank you, Jason. We're going to say bye to everybody who's watched on YouTube. So if you have watched on YouTube, thank you so much. Again, it's really important for us to say that, like, if you want to learn more from Jason, and not just Jason, from so many of our other ambassadors and the guests that we've had on streams, the content is all there waiting for you as soon as you join Flashmasters. There is now, I think, 50 hours worth of live stream content in there. As soon as you join, just in the member zone. Personally, I think this stream alone will make the whole thing worth it, because this is an absolute masterclass here in creative photography. So yeah, Jason, thank you so much. For Flashmasters members, don't go anywhere, because we're now going to talk about these images. But again, Jason, thank you so much for joining us on this live stream. We're even bigger fans of your work now, and your brain, as somebody said before, because it's fascinating. So yeah, thanks very much.
Pleasure's all mine.
Yeah, we will see you on the next one. Thanks for watching, everyone.